Regulators and investors continue to focus on fee and expense violations in private capital. To shed light on these issues and to provide general partners with a benchmark, CSC, Troutman Pepper, and Withum once again partnered with Private Funds CFO to survey CFOs and industry professionals to ask about their fees and expenses practices. We have been conducting this survey over the last decade, and it has yielded great intel for our industry. Here to comment on the results of this year's survey are the subject matter experts. Anquillare, Head of Fund Services North America at CSC, Tom Angell, Partner at Withum, and Stephanie Costantino, Partner at Troutman Pepper. Anne?
Thank you so much. We are really excited to be sharing the results of the most recent survey with you. The private capital industry has been growing and maturing and has reached a crucial juncture where it is large enough and complex enough to warrant global coordination. The intelligence provided by an industry-sourced survey is critical to everyone. We have always focused on asking the right questions and providing valuable interpretation of the results so that all industry participants can make better decisions. Thankfully, our industry has a robust network of service providers, and these can help transition our industry. And also, we are really benefiting from the adoption of global standards. I know it's been slow, but we're getting there, and that's going to really help with best practices and technology solutions. Everyone, including the regulators, wants our industry to thrive and survive. And that means ensuring capital growth and investor protections and market protections, as well as knowing what our industry is currently doing and what we need to move forward. So to share some great insights, I'm going to pass the baton to Tom.
Thank you, Anne. Appreciate that. A couple of things that I noticed by looking at comparisons from the 2020 survey to the 2022 survey. One was there were a lot more offsets to management fees for monitoring transactions, financing, transaction advisory fees, and things like that, compared to 2022. And I think the reason for that was back in 2020, I still think there was a hangover from SEC enforcement action against funds for some of these expenses that they were collecting. And I think the second was the marketplace was such that the leverage switched over from the general partners to the limited partners. The other thing that was interesting was when the manager fees were starting to be charged, and that doubled from 2020 to 2022 at the date of first closing. So the emphasis on and concern about the legislatures and or the regulators is still fresh in the minds of the managers, and carried interest, for instance, dodged another bullet since it was taken out of the Inflation Reduction Act. And those are things that I came up with, and I'd like to pass it on to Stephanie.
Oh, thanks, Tom. I think while carried interest may have dodged a bullet, I think one of the things that we have concentrated on is that private equity continues to be, and venture capital and many other types of investment funds continue to be under scrutiny. When we look at the prohibited activities proposal, for example, many of the fees and expenses that we see discussed in the survey that have been fairly consistent, for example, we think are the subject of scrutiny. For example, fees and expenses associated with examinations or investigations, like Tom discussed, may be prohibited going forward, potentially. Regulatory and compliance fees and expenses of the private fund advisor or its related persons, they also may be prohibited. Again, it'll depend how they're structured, how they're charged. I think, all in all, really what it comes down to and what we're seeing is that for many fund private advisors, the additional costs and complexities layered onto the already complex system, may lead them to reevaluate their current fee structure and the current fee structure may need to support additional changes that are being proposed with the current fee proposals that are on the table. And so we will look forward to seeing what happens. But there's a tremendous amount of historical information contained in the fee structure survey that is really relevant as we look to try and guide people through the current proposals that are on the table. And with that, I will hand it back to Ann.
Great. Excellent points. It is quite interesting that we're at a point in time in the industry where all the complexities are increasing, and yet the scrutiny on fees and expenses and trying to keep costs down is a bit of a juxtaposition. And we are also very mindful of changing industry practices and having unintended consequences. I used to complain about our US regulatory regime until I became much more familiar through my European colleagues about what Europe is facing. Now I don't complain, but we are looking more and more like Europe every day now. So this is great. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. We thank Ann Anquillare, Tom Angell, and Stephanie Costantino for sharing their insights on this increasingly important topic. You can read more of their perspectives in the latest issue of Private Funds CFO.